as you know, I mean, a lot of you guys have already been talking to us. My name is Ben McCloskey, who invited you all here. We got Arthur Rasmussen, who's our tech lead. And we got Christian Rustad, who's our co-founder. He's been the one been mining the longest and kind of got us, me and Ola, in the path of crypto as well. And our top code is called LokoTech Group. Just a brief introduction. Our top code is actually traded in the Euronext Growth Exchange in Norway. And so we want to be as transparent as possible when it comes to the crypto industry because it is so opaque. And this is one thing that we're striving to do. We established the company in 2019. In 2021, after successful simulations of our design, we raised $13.5 million. And you guys hear a lot about the bulldozer. We actually had an awesome ASIC that we had to redesign because it wasn't dense enough. And what that means is we weren't getting enough ASIC machines out of one one wafer. And that sucks because it would have been awesome for self-mining, but we all know how that would have ended up in this industry. So we went back to the redesign table, and we successfully did it in 2022, and we started the prototype development process, which led us to where we're at today. This is our management and board. As you can see, you have me, Ola, and Christian. We're the founders of LokoTech. You have Hendrik, he's a capital markets guy that helps us out with any of that. Harold's our in-house lawyer. Sheltil and Ingva, they both work for Aukert Solutions, and they're high up in that oil company. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. Christopher Lovedahl is in real estate, and then Victor and Cecile both work for Nordic Semiconductor, which is a fabless semiconductor in Norway. And they make a lot of like chips and stuff for like the large companies. I mean Apple as well. And actually, Cecile recently stepped down from the board there at Nordic Semiconductor. For the chip status, all fundamental blockchain-related IP has been validated, and critical architecture has been confirmed through the MPW run. Key insights from the MPW were learned and will be utilized in commercial ASIC for tape-out. The performance remains the same at 15.6 mega hash at 1.04 watts, plus or minus 10%. This demonstrates about 4 to 5x more power efficiency than the current competition, and technology nodes on 12 nanometer LP plus node, which is very important because our nearest competitor is on the 7 nanometer. If we go to spend the $25–30 million and go down to the 7, this design you can basically double the hash rate and cut the power consumption in half. And what's also good about it, it's a legacy node, so there's no risk runs. A lot of IP's already been tested. And the only thing that we had to test in the MPW for the analog stuff is it was tested on physical silicon, so we know that it works and it'll work in the final chip, because that's what we needed to validate before we could open pre-sales. Because when you have custom circuitry, you can't go to the foundry, make a wafer, and then have an ASIC that comes off the line not working. So we spent the $500,000. We had to wait a long time to get the ASIC back because we had some packaging issues. But we don't have to worry about that going forward because we have a lot more real estate for the pads on the commercial ASIC than a 1x1 millimeter die. It's a very small pitch. And then most importantly, we have an on-chip microcontroller, which is kind of the first of its kind, and that's actually integrated into the chip itself, and it's definitely going to enhance the product's lifecycle and user experience. For a technical overview, we've talked about this numerous times. We're looking at doing a USB stick. The single or double tube servers, so that's more of a retrofit into existing legacy hardware. One of the ones that are most interesting to us is the L3. We've already kind of, did an overview of what we could actually get out of that. We could add 32 more ASICs to that hash blade that we could retrofit in the L3. And then you're looking at about a 724 watt machine with a 10 giga hash just by retrofitting it into the L3.
Nice.
And then, of course, we're going to have our GPU-style hash blades to take advantage of the existing infrastructure for, Ethereum, but no one wants Ethereum anymore. So you can sell your GPUs and slap in our hash blades, and now you got a script ASIC miner. The less energy is used due to a combination of several techniques, and that's why I want to hurry up and get into the discussion with our ASIC designer so you guys can ask them whatever you want. And this is the several techniques of solving the algorithm and advanced circuitry design, which is the biggest advantage to us and why you guys are all drilling the tile one and the RAM, because you can actually physically see our design on that board. And we spent a lot of money, and we really don't want to give the competition a head start.
Yeah, you got to protect your intellectual property.
Yes, 100%. I don't think our shareholders would be too happy. Which we got about 1,600 shareholders. The hash blade overview will be 128 ASICs. It's all going to be running on PCIe X1 slot. It's around about 2 gigahash, 135 watt. Single slot, 275 mil, basically deep, and then 125 watt or high. Cooling either by air or immersion. It doesn't make much heat. I mean, it's 1.04 watts, and a lot of the heat dissipation, or heat dispersion, can come through our packaging of the actual ASIC and the design itself, because we don't have that much logic on it. And then the smart ASIC functionalities, which this is quite innovative on our part, because it's more of a Western thought process when tackling issues that we've all dealt with mining. And a few of those include, and we do have more, but we'll release that later. Real-time diagnostics at the chip level, 24/7, you know how it's acting. Self-optimizing clock frequency to make it, the most profitable ASIC that can be, because it's silicon lottery. And what's good about this is during the lifespan of that ASIC, because since we see ourselves having a monopoly on this algorithm, we're not going to be flooding the market with hash rate. We want to do about 250,000 hash blades, and then we're going to start petering off. And as the profitability and the network can take it, then we'll release another small batch, or if Litecoin goes to 1,000, or if Doge goes up to 20, then we'll help it out, because we want to kind of take the steps further of how Ethereum got big. And Ethereum got big because a small guy could win. And that's what we want to do. We really want to decentralize this too. We don't want large farms coming in. We actually do have a max cap on people being able to buy that are large farms. And but that's just me ranting. And then the next is by far the best thing, which we have 255 tile ones, which you guys are just playing around with now. And that the microcontroller on the ASIC, if a tile is not hashing, it turns it off. If a raceway goes down, it turns off a quarter of the chip. If there's a full system fail at the chip level, it turns the ASIC off completely, or routes the power to the next chip. Now what happens if the microcontroller goes down? Default goes to the next chip. So you don't have to worry about the daisy chain lottery, and you don't have to worry about taking it offline to repair, because you're not taking out a bunch of chips. And that's what's good about this, because your uptime is way more, and simply put, if your chip's not hashing, you're not wasting power. We don't understand why large actors haven't done this. It's quite amazing, actually. And here's the most important thing that people want to learn about, is our plan for manufacturing and delivery. Projected tape out of our design is in Q2 2024, because all we're doing is scaling up right now. It's about a 1 month for the design rule check of the foundry. That's kind of your last, checks and balances before they actually do the mass set. So you actually don't have a failed mass set when you spend the $6 million. And then going on from the anticipated duration to produce the mass set from tape out to alpha is roughly about 3 months. And deliveries are expected the second half of next year. And this is without paying for prioritization, because when you manufacture ASICs, you can pay for hotspots and super hotspots, and then a lot of it is contingent on volume. So if you do have a lot of volume, you can actually move up to tier 2. We won't make it up to tier 1, because that's like massive. I've told you a few people, if you're doing 40 chips or 40 million chips a month, there'll be a tier 1, and then you'll jump the line. But the foundry is basically our God, and if they say jump, we jump. So that's why it's so, you don't know where it's at, because we have to listen to them. Then you have the potential respin and ramp up of the yield curve. Do any of you guys know what a yield curve is on wafer production?
The
Yeah,
yield
well,
of
go ahead.
I was going to say, you're talking about the yield of each actual,
Wafer.
how many chips we can have on one wafer.
Correct.
Right.
So the yield curve starts out pretty crap. So we did it very conservative, especially on the financial, about 60%. It'll be higher than that. But that doesn't mean that only 60% of that wafer works. That means only 60% of that wafer meets the specs. And as you produce, 1,000 wafer, 2,000 wafer usually is that limit to where it gets up to the top yield, and then you bend. So it doesn't mean like that 60%, that will be hitting our specs, then we'll have, say, 30%, and then 10 will be just, they'll be failed chips. So that's why you see a bunch of different miners that have different, like, hash rates and stuff, because they're binning the ASICs and then they're putting them on the platform and selling at cheaper value, which we'll probably do the same, but that's why we want to get into the mini USB, like the USB miners, to where we can get more decentralization out, because they're still going to be profitable.
So you are going to have a USB miner. I mean, it's not these, obviously. This is just proof of concept.
We'll have,
but you're going to have like the Gecko kind of USB miners, where it's a couple of chips on a board.
Yeah, for sure. We're looking at like 10.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, you can just have like a USB hub and just
That's genius.
And then off to basically mass manufacturing. That's, you know, the foundry, slicing and dicing, back grinding before the slicing and dicing, packaging, assembling, QA, and ship. And as I mentioned, we'll be manufacturing in Pennsylvania and manufacturing in Norway. So.
And so you're looking like, you said the second half of 2024, so is that like Q3, Q4?
Yeah, Q3, Q4.
And the yield curve that you were just talking about, what's interesting to me is you mentioned that the capability of going to 7 nanometer, right now we're at 12.
Yeah.
Going down to 7 nanometer will increase the yield. We can have
No,
more chips per wafer.
It doesn't increase the yield. The yield's different because you do that through your testing and validating through the whole manufacturing process. Like, just because we have a design we hand it into the foundry, that doesn't mean testing and validation just stops.
Okay.
Like, that literally happens. We get chips back, we go to the lab, go through everything. We get chips back, go through the lab, we go through everything. I mean, that's like your environmental testing. So you do that for about a year. Like, once the mass production starts, you do that for about a year, and then you basically kind of stop. It starts tapering off, and then if you find something that you could actually, you know, make it better or do something, then you can do it after that. Okay. And then the software that we're going to be using, there have been people say that they don't know what Cadence is. It sounds like a scam. It's a $66 billion company. It does everything from synthesis to place and route. The subscription per year is $4 million for one user. That's one user. And if you want to export it, like abroad, you got a 60% premium if you're not in the States, and you do get a little discount if you add another user. And it's good to use this because, as any software that you always have cheaper versions. But we're not using the cheaper version because we're attacking this ASIC as the traditional industry does. Because when you're spending $4 million a year per one user, that software better be working. So when you get your SIMs back and they give those efficiency numbers back to you, you're doing plus or minus a few percent. Because companies want to know what they design is going to work when they actually go to tape out. And I think this is what's important to mention, because there's a knowledge gap between the manufacturer of the semiconductor industry and the miner. And that's why I wanted to bring this up. And also, that's another thing, is the efficiency results are worst case scenarios. That's like burning the ASIC at 80C, put it in terrible conditions, and the software automatically does that. But again, added benefit to us, we have ASIC designers that have years of experience, and it's good because when they see some of the designs that are in our ASIC that they've used in other chips, they know if that's going to deviate just a hair or whatnot when you have that plus or minus.
Yeah.
So they know where the benefits are, and they know where the losses are from actual real world experience from putting that into the design. And that's it.